making $1,981 trading Walmart. What's going on, guys? Welcome on into the recap. Let's get into it. So we have Walmart. We had taken partial profits on Wednesday and then the rest of it off on Thursday. So we made total on the trade $1,682 on the $200,000 account, $212 on the $25,000 account, and $85 on the 10K account, which on the 10K account, I just took another payout. So that's cool. We'll see how long it takes to process that. Last one took a while, but it was over like Christmas. So I don't know how long this one will take, but we'll see. So that's cool. But yeah, so let's get into this. I'll get into this recap. That'll be next. So stay tuned for the Bitcoin trade. It was actually really, really fast. I'll talk about that in the next video. And yeah, so if you look on the realized R multiple, because I'm using TradeLocker on this, when I enter the trades, I can enter a stop and take profit. If I adjust it, I'm not sure if that adjusts initially on this, but it comes out to be like not that great, roughly a 1-to-1 almost risk reward trade, which you'd say, hey, like, you usually you don't do that. Usually you take, you're looking for more like a 1.5 R, meaning I make 1.5 what I risk. And that would be true, and that is true. However, so this is a special circumstance, and I'll explain why now. So here's the Walmart chart. It's now pre-market hours on Friday. I got to go to a graduation, so I'm going to have to dip soon. But the thought process here was we made a really, really, really big move. And I was looking for this gap to fill right here. But they have earnings coming up on Thursday next week. So we're like less than a week out till earnings, or at the time about a week out till earnings. And I was like, I don't, at this point in time, I look back the past couple of earnings and we tend to not see large movements up or down prior to earnings in the days prior. So I'm like, let's just get out of this thing. It made a huge move. It's pretty much like most of our way there. And I did have a huge wide stop, but honestly, in the situation, in a trade like this, like you could, in theory, hold through the earnings just because of how wide of a stop this is. But I'm not going to do that when I've already made large gains in the trade. So I moved my stop to break even, and I took half of it off on Wednesday prior to the FOMC meeting in Powell's press conference, just in case something happened there. Nothing really happened. Nothing crazy happened. And then I just took the rest of it off on Thursday at 98 something, just because I just didn't want to deal with it. And I wanted to get out of it and just lock it in, even though knowing we have earnings next week, really is what it was. So where did I take this trade on? And you can kind of say it was based off of two time frames. It was kind of a blend between the daily and the weekly. And I don't want to get caught up in that too much, because when you do that, it's easy to kind of get in your head and like throw yourself off. But what I will say is that if you jump on the weekly time frame, this weekly looked like a pretty decent short opportunity when we had this candle right here, like this big upper wick coming down. And then when we had this massive bullish engulfing, I'm like, holy crap. And it held up it bounced back super, super well and showed really good relative strength after the whole tariff situation. That's when I got in and around once it broke above this upper wick right here from the week prior, which was around $91. And then I set my stop loss back to that breakdown point, because we had this big move down. And I said to myself, okay, this to me seems like a false breakdown. And if we were to come back and re-break through here, now I feel more confident in us going lower, or there's a higher probability that we go lower. So I'm going to get in on the inverse of that. So essentially, it's like the inverse of my setup. I was not interested in playing the breakdown with all the craziness we had going on with the whole tariff stuff at the time. I was not interested in getting in on a swing trade around then. Kind of learned my lesson on that stuff to a degree. If you go back to past recaps or back to the beginning of April, we kind of had a lot of wonky stuff going on, but you can't control what's going to happen or what macro events are going to go on. So like it is what it is to a degree. So we get back in and we get a nice move to the upside, and we just take it off early because that's what I wanted to do. Nothing crazy really behind that. So just the nature of the trade, I couldn't, like, there was nowhere else to put my stop. Like, based on how I do things, my system, this stop had to be here. There was no put the stop here or here. Like, those are just like random arbitrary areas. The logical spot per my strategy would be here. If the setup looked a bit better and wasn't as like wonky and we didn't have this craziness, and I got in maybe somewhere in like this ballpark based off of what happened, maybe it would have been really good. It would have been a much better risk reward, but just based on how it played out, it had to be a trade that I sat in for a while And I did because I got in this trade back on like April, literally like a month ago almost. So it's almost a month-long trade. And I play the bounds of my trading is between earnings. So I'm not going to hold through earnings. So you only have a couple of months to take swing trades. And so you could hold a trade for a couple of months. It might, in this case, be a month. It might be a couple of days. It might be a week. But when you play the bigger time frames, you generally end up holding longer, generally. So that was the Walmart trade. Not too much else to talk about there. If you dive back into here, well, so far 2 trades so far for the month, which I will talk, or I guess technically the Walmart trade was taken last month. I just realized the gains this month. So 1 actual trade this month. We'll talk about that one in the next recap. But let me tell you, if you were to take a look at my profit factor right now, it's pretty good. This is a perfect example though of someone yeah, check out my average win-loss, dude. Check out my average win-loss and my profit factor. Now, the reason why this number, this is 80%, by the way, if I go into here, 4 trades, if you see this negative 22, I should mention, I'll mention it now because it's a good time to do it because people are like, well, why is there something there? Well, didn't you have 2 wins? Yes, I did. However, I did not foresee that I was going to trade the Bitcoin trade on Thursday that I then am going to recap in the next recap video. So I got a warning that I had been inactive in my trading account with this prop firm at the time, this $200,000 account that I don't want to just give away for free, right? So I had to take a trade, and so this was my like 22-cent loss. It just turned out to be a 22-cent loss that I took. I could delete it. I'm going to just leave it in there. Well, I guess I should probably delete it in the back end, but I'll leave it in there for now. Essentially, I just had to take that trade in order to satisfy like the inactivity requirements, meaning now I have 30 more days. Boom. I had this whole week to do it. Like I had until like Friday. I didn't know if there was going to be a trade, so I was like, okay, if there's no trades this week on that account, then I'll just take one. And then it just so happened that the next day we did have one, so it would have been irrelevant. I didn't need to take that trade looking back, but that's what I did. So that's why that's looking like that. And that's why these numbers are hugely skewed. And then realistically, they shouldn't even be, like this should be 100%. This should be unlimited because we don't have a loss so far, technically. But that's the video. That's the recap on Walmart. Hope it was helpful. If you have, or if you want to look at TradeZella, get a account with TradeZella to track all your trades like this. Code TC10 will save you 10%. Link in the video description box. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.